Last week, Social Security turned 90. Will it survive another decade? Recently, Elon Musk called Social Security the, quote, biggest Ponzi scheme of all time. Donald Trump asserts the program is just fine so long as Democrats do not get their grubby little paws on it. Meanwhile, the chief actuary of Social Security says it will be bankrupt in just 7 years. So which is it, 7 years of Ponzi or 90 years so long as Republicans are in charge? The key here is Social Security bankruptcy does not mean what most people think. Does not mean the checks end and grandma eats the cat food. It simply means the so-called Social Security Trust Fund is exhausted and the program starts losing money every year. So the trust fund is the stockpile of U.S. Treasuries built up over the past 90 years while people were paying into Social Security, but not yet retired. That's the Ponzi part of it. The trust fund peaked in 2020 at nearly $3 trillion, and since then it's been losing about $100 billion a year. But it's now expected to accelerate and run out in just 7 more years. That would mean nearly $3 trillion lost in just 12 years under Democrats and Republicans. Of course, the kicker is the trust fund is already gone because there's nothing in there but IOUs, government debt. As in, every dollar of surplus in Social Security was already spent by Congress and replaced with an IOU. And when those IOUs run out, when Social Security is bankrupt, it simply recognizes reality. The money is long gone. What happens then? In theory, they could cut benefits. A 20% cut would stabilize the program. Or they could hike taxes. Democrats have long argued to subject all income to 15% Social Security and Medicare taxes. They could even raise the retirement age again, which Reagan did in the 1980s, taking it from 65 to 67. Of course, in reality, they will do none of these things. Instead, they will take the path of least resistance and just let Social Security losses roll as fresh new deficit on top of the $1.6 trillion plus deficits we are currently running. And these will be large. The Congressional Budget Office estimates $6.3 trillion in Social Security deficits in the first 10 years after bankruptcy, and then almost doubling every decade after that. Now, these losses go on top of regular deficits, which CBO projects at roughly $2 trillion in that first decade every single year. That all takes us to a cool $2.5 trillion in deficits as far as the eye can see until the great paper money Ragnarok, when gold and Bitcoin shall inherit the earth. So what's next? Brought to you by I Trust Capital. It shouldn't be this way. Countries like Chile or Singapore run Social Security like 401ks, so allowing people to invest it and keeping it out of the grubby paws of both parties. In fact, if we ran Social Security like a 401k since 401ks started, returns would roughly quadruple, and we'd have perhaps $18 trillion in surplus, half the national debt. In fact, if we ran Social Security like 401ks since the beginning back in the 30s, it would have something between 50 and 100 trillion, which would be almost $1 million per American household. Turning Social Security into a 401k style program that's out of Congress's reach, so-called privatization, is the only way to save it. But given that won't happen, it will instead go bankrupt, turn into tens of trillions of debt, one more albatross forcing the Fed into permanent inflation. Grandma will not eat the cat food, but the dollar will. Okay, we'll be watching. See you next time.